Hello, fellow Milan fans. Sorry, I almost said Milo fans, but Milan fans around the world. How's everyone doing? Yeah, glad that you have all two guys this week. We have three games. Two of them have passed, and one, of course, to preview. So, Shane, how are you feeling this week as a Milan fan, right after the international break?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, obviously, which we'll touch on a bit later. Great result for us. So, uh, hopefully, this leads us in good stead for the upcoming UCL game against Napoli. What are you thinking as a Milan fan this week?
Yeah, well, coming off that big win, yeah, I'm feeling very positive. But then again, we've all had this feeling before that we've come off a good win and we're expecting it to continue, but it just died there and then. But yeah, all we can do is be
Istanbul.
hopeful.
Yeah.
Istanbul and many other games as well. We thought we had it, thought that this is the beginning of something great, but then, yeah, what can you do? What can you do? So,
That's it,
just
man.
getting right into it. Just our first game that we have here for you guys. It's not a positive one. Actually, we are here to talk about the 3-1 defeat to Udinese that happened right before the international break. Uh, really, really, really disappointing. I mean, what can you say? Udinese, a team that's had our number before, somehow can score 3 goals, and we only had one consolation goal towards the end. How did it feel, Shane? I think you were as devastated as I was, especially going into what should have been the turning of a corner.
Yeah, like Udinese, historically they've been a difficult side for us to go up against, right? But I, uh, I don't know, man. I just think we're kind of as great as Ibra has been for us, and well, all through his career, basically. I think we're kind of getting to the point now where it's like, look, well, it's great that you've gotten the oldest goal scorer in Serie A. You know, is your output going to be considered? The penalty retake, I mean, it was just absolutely shocking. We looked like we looked like basically the team that we've been since just before the World Cup. Wasn't great, wasn't very positive. There was no fight or drive with the team. We just looked out of options. So one to just completely write off for me. Completely forget about it. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I had thought that it wouldn't have been that bad. So we've had some good moments whereby when we went with the 3-4-3, or I don't know as you call it 3-4-1-2 or 3-4-2 or whatever the hell you call it. Uh, it shouldn't have been that bad, and you can say that with any formation, you can't win or you can't be keep clean sheets consecutively. But it seemed to have gone back into that dip. I really don't get it. And Zlatan was on the field, so trying to put it down on one cause is difficult to say. It's a bunch of collective mistakes, but if I had to single it out, I mean, again, Tomori, yeah, this is why I'm really starting to make it a point that Tomori is not the leader of the back line, and those goals that we conceded are the result of there not being any leadership or experience marshalling those defenders and saying that okay, I got this, cover me, you stick with that guy. That level of chemistry isn't there yet. It's not bad because kept clean sheet and we've had good performances. But there are times when you go up against Udinese that have a lot more physical players, they can easily barge through. And the goals, guys, they were so cheap, they were so of the end, and that's why you have the title. The end, is it the end of the beginning or beginning of the end? And by that, I don't mean it in a negative way, but if this is the beginning of the end of this poor form, I welcome it. But Shane, I mean, is there anything to stand out? Because I do want to mention one name that I'll mention a bit earlier, but can you take any positives at all from that game?
Honestly, no. It's just like when the whole back line looks as bad as it does, and when you see Moynihan actually, basically being non-existent, right? That just tells you about how overall awful that we all were. For me, it's hard to take positives. Did you take one? Because if the answer is yes, I'm really surprised here.
Don't see him at, at any time in games where he should have been at least featured, and that is Yasin Adli. So in this game, Yasin Adli came and he gave I do think it's an assist, but it's the what you call it, the hockey pass right before the assist that led to the consolation goal going in. I mean, if he doesn't get minutes, I don't know what to say. What more does this kid have to do, guys? What more does he have to do? But yeah, before we move on to the next game, actually, we have Shane. He's had some technical issues. So I'll speak a little bit about the upcoming games, and yeah, forgive me, it's gonna be a little bit of a rant on my end. To see what's going on. So the next game we have is actually the big win. This is the 4-0 win over Napoli. I didn't expect it. For anyone who knows me, once we go down, I know once we have a bad run of games, I not that I'm positive, but I'm negative from to get with. But lose a game and I become even more on the most negative person that you probably meet on this planet. But this game really turned things around. There were only good performances. And yeah, as much as I hate to say it, Krunic even wasn't that bad. Even though I was still blaming for a few lost balls that didn't lead to goals, but we had amazing game from Tonali, more than amazing game from Leao. I mean, so many positives, so many positives. Maybe the only slight letdown, but you can still see the threat is actually Giroud. So yeah, what more can you say? Not many people expected it, but there's a lot to say in terms of when everything goes right. This is the sort of magic that we can come up with. Hold on. So that's the sort of magic that we can actually come up with. But there's one area of improvement, and that's actually within the second half that I think we need to acknowledge that in the second half, seeing Bakayoko come on, Rebic, and the usual suspects that really takes us nowhere. I understand it. I get it. We want to take the load off, and we don't want players to get in our default starting 11. But then, what? Why can't you give Adley minutes? Why can't maybe Povega get minutes? Okay, we got Shane back. Hi Shane, sorry, I just got to add you back to the stream. One moment. Give me one moment, guys. Yep, and you should be coming up. Can you hear us, Shane? Can you hear me? Sorry. Okay. Yep, you sure can. Okay, you're up. I
Awesome.
was just talking about
Sorry about
Napoli
that,
game
man.
and going into the
Mm.
second half, and why couldn't we see more of the players that really need the game time? So, I mean, what were your takeaways from the game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, hugely positive result, and I think hopefully with a bit of luck, this is damaged Napoli psychologically for the UCL game, because I don't think they've been put under pressure like this before, right?
I think this is the
So
biggest loss in
yeah,
the season. I think, yeah.
yeah, like, and the thing is they were comprehensively beaten. Like, I mean, we completely wiped the floor with them. So, you know, to say that we wiped the floor with a team who all they know really how to do is actually go on the front foot, they're going to have to think twice about playing against us now, because they're going to have to basically, maybe keel it back a bit and try and hit us on the counter. So, I mean, this has been a huge result and potentially a big one for our season. So, yeah, it kind of sucked a bit because we did see the likes of, I think we seen, was it Bakayoko or Rigi kind of being bought on, so.
Yeah, CDK Rabish. I mean, it's a complete change in the middle towards the front.
Yeah, but still, overall, great results. Every player on the pitch stood out. Even Calabria, which I'm not a fan of. I mean, they all did really well. It was a great team performance. You can't fault anyone. And yeah, let's bring that into the UCL and destroy him.
But let me pose a question to you. And everyone's talking about the absence of Osimhen. Let's all admit it. Yeah, Osimhen is a terrific player, but he's still one person, one man. And if you see the first game that we played against Napoli, the one that we lost, he didn't score. By the way, I don't think even Osimhen might not have been on the field. So it was a goal through a penalty, thanks to Des who gave up the penalty. And the second goal is actually from Diego Simeone, who actually played. So, do you really think people are overhyping it or making a big deal that Osimhen is not there when in the first game the goals didn't even come from him? So, I think it's more to do with how we played rather than what Napoli was lacking. I mean, can you agree with that?
Yeah. So it's very easy saying this now after Milan beat them 4-0. However, I have said it a few times that I think this Napoli team are overhyped. I think they're playing very physical, fast football in a season where all the big teams are basically just destroyed, right? for the most part. They've managed to pull it off. While they really deserve to be top of Serie A, I'm not disputing that. I think if you look at this, if this was an ordinary season, I really don't see them running away with it. While I think they'd still be top, I mean, but they wouldn't be closing out the league, nearly in, the end of April in a normal season like they have done. So while they are good, I'm just not saying they're not this, once in a generation team. We did see it, how how easy it is and was to break down, Kvaratskhelia,
Kvicha.
right? Yeah, Kavicha, right? Kavicevic. But yeah, so it was easy to kind of, obviously mark him out the game. So, and to be honest, right, an awful lot of teams would have been watching this and would have learned how to actually mark Napoli, out of the game. So, even if they win the Serie A, I wouldn't be surprised now if this is maybe potentially the end of their. Now, while they will win the Serie A, I don't think it'll be this easy next season, and I don't see them winning it next season. So, yeah, it's going to be
Yeah, good
interesting,
point.
man.
But what are your expectations going to the Champions League? I mean, Champions League is a completely different beast. I mean, you can have the same 11 players on both sides, but then the motivations are different, the atmospheres are different, and of course, the prize is different. Yeah, I mean, this is a league game, you're playing for the Scudetto and whatever prize that you're coming, but for the Champions League, it's real money. Win that game, win the round, and there's a lot more coming towards you at the end of the season in terms of the bank. Do you think we're going to see a similar sort of Napoli, or is it going to be vastly very different? Because you would expect Spalletti at least to
Yeah,
to learn something.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Spalletti's ever made it this far, right?
Hmm.
So, and I don't think anyone at Napoli as a club has. So, let's be honest here, right? So I'm hoping what happens is the likes of, Baresi's, Massara, Maldini kind of come through and actually talk to the players and remind them exactly what's needed. Because as silly as it sounds, non-playing staff could be key here. And again, I'll say this: Napoli don't have a heritage in the UCL. You know, Milan have a heritage, so we're going to see how important that is. I think the stage is set up. I think after this, I think this is a very damaging psychological defeat for a team just like Napoli, right? It's their first time in the quarters, right? So that's new to them. So first time in the quarterfinals. So they've been playing a team that just tore them apart and comprehensively beaten them. I don't see Napoli going through.
Okay. Well, you raised a good point there because and I know everyone likes to call it the Champions League DNA, but it is something different than that because it's the pressure of being in the cup competition versus being in the league. I mean, the league, yeah, you play the same opponent twice within the span of several months. But then in between that, you get other teams, different variations that you try different things. But now that you're in a cup competition, it's do or die, and fortunately, we don't have to travel that much, just between Naples and Milan. However, then comes the motivations about who wants it more. We've all seen teams, and Milan undoubtedly in the 90s and 2000s. You could argue that some seasons we were more of a cup or European team rather than a local team, in the sense that you can win the Champions League or I think they call it the European Cup at that time. But then you can do not so great in your own domestic league because maybe it's the energy level or maybe the players don't really care for whatever reason. We've seen this, yeah, and it's happened before. Uh,
Qualifying via the Intertoto Cup, right?
yeah. But this then
That's
leads
what we
us to
used to
the
do. Remember, I think was that the season that we won? Yeah,
yeah. So it's that motivation. I
so
think will play
yeah,
a
I'm
big part.
badly here. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. That will play a big part, and of course, the next round, if we do make it to the semifinals, it's also extremely winnable if we do make it, because we play our direct rivals, and everyone's going to be hyped for that. If we play our direct rivals or even Benfica, and I'm not going to put it to Inter to completely definitely progress to semifinals, but that could be something. And when was the last time we played Inter in the Champions League? I think this was in 2000s. I think last time we played Inter the Champions League, maybe around the same time. I think, but we went on to win it, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was 0-3, wasn't it? And that's when we went on to win it. I think
Yeah,
that's
I
when
think
we
so.
beat Juve in the final.
Yeah. So the precedence is there, but I mean, guys, they really need to concentrate on a competition that is so valuable. And actually, if you think about it, the run up to the final is essentially a Copa. It's a Copa route. Yeah, you play Napoli. We could have played them in the Copa. We play Inter in the final. These are games that we could have had domestically. So why not? If you think you can beat them in the Copa, you can definitely beat them in the Champions League. Then all you need to worry about is the final, which is in itself already an amazing achievement. All right. So yeah, okay, let's move on to the next game that we want to preview, and that is against Empoli. So Shane, about this our opponents Empoli, who actually won 1-0 against Lecce. And I'm not writing either of those teams as bad teams, but this has to be a must-win game because of where we are in the league. I mean, what are your feelings from this game?
Yeah. Well, you know what's going to happen. So we're gonna come off out of after battering the league leaders 4-0, and we're probably going to either draw or worse, right? Because this is the way we are,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. This is our story. This is how it
Heartburn is a
works.
problem. This is it. So, like, am I confident about it? Not really. And what I don't like about it is looking at the projected lineups, right? It looks like pretty much the same squad that was playing against Napoli for the most part.
Okay.
So is Giroud going to get a break? Is Tonali going to get a break? Um,
Leao, especially. Yeah.
I mean, Teo, Leao, right? And then, geez, I don't know. Well, look, at least it's on, so it's tomorrow, right? So I think
Yeah.
it's tomorrow,
For
Good
me, it's
Friday.
tomorrow night or
So
Saturday morning. Yeah.
yes, so at least we have Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, maybe whenever the next game is the Champions League one. I could be wrong there, but yeah. So at least hopefully there should be a couple of days rest. But like, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me just the way this team's playing is that we just go back to kind of this weird kind of off form where we can't string a pass together and we're making Empoli look like Real Madrid. But hopefully, if we can scrape through, get to 3 points, because we need to be finishing at least second. We can't be we can't be banking on Juventus, or we can't be worried about Juventus potentially getting these 15 points back and then leaping over us if we finish fourth. So we just can't do that. So yeah, it's still an awful lot to play for. Still very important. And keep in mind, right? Before, if you won the Champions League, you automatically got in the following year,
Yeah.
even if you didn't qualify through
Yeah.
your domestic. That's gone now.
Oh, is it?
So
I
the
thought
thing
that was still
is
the
we might
rule.
be, yeah. No, so as far as I know, I think that's gone, right? So that essentially means that we could be, defending champions, but we won't be able to defend it.
Defending nothing. Defending.
You know, so which again, I could actually see it happening just based on like how this team is going. So I don't know. Hopefully though it comes out. Hopefully it's an easy couple of points and it's put away in the first half, which we know isn't going to happen. If we win, it might be 2-1 with a goal in the 96th minute. But yeah, hopefully put away in the first half, then just move on and worry about the Champions League. What
But if
about you?
you
What
were
are you thinking?
Pioli, yeah, if you're
Hmm.
Pioli, and other than Krunic, who I'm sure that you'd feel put as captain or and number 9, what would
Ballon
you actually
d'Or
opt for?
winner,
Would you actually go for a
Krunic.
rotation, or, I mean, they just came off an international break. But then again, it's like you're taking a big risk that anything could happen, especially in a stupid game like this, and that could cost you players that you really need against Napoli in the Champions League. Because the game that we played and the game that we won 4-0, it's our formation that we're very much used to, and it's lineup that is free from those niggling injuries, in the sense that no one really came back from like a long-term injury and that was their first game back. I mean, these guys have been there for a while. Oh, sorry, we lost Shane. But yeah, I mean, I asked that question to Shane, but I'll have to answer that. If you ask me personally, I would actually go for a full rotation. Not to say full, but a bit of a hybrid. Rotate the guys up front, especially Liao. I don't think we should really have to need Liao to win this game. I'm not writing off Empoli, but it's it's to a point whereby we're so overly dependent on Liao, and when he's not having a good game, then essentially the whole team suffers. So my expected, or the lineup that I like to see is still Giroud. I would actually give Salamakers. Oh, we got Shane back. Hang on, Shane. I'll add you back into the stream. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, just some technical issues. And Shane should be back on the screen. Yep, and you're back, Shane.
So this is a learning experience, and I know never to do a stream on mobile data again. Very sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Shane. The question I asked is that would you actually opt for a rotation or some form of rotation against Empoli? Keep in mind that we have such important games after that.
If I was using my football manager, kind of mentality, probably yes. But knowing the lack of depth that we have, probably not. Because even with our best players out there, we could actually just barely, we could. There's a big difference in if we have Leao playing with his smile back, he can basically win a game on his own. So, and you're kind of dependent on him really, which we have been for an awful lot of this season. So just because there's a couple of a days rest in between, the Champions League game and the Empoli game, I'd probably say no. And just hope to God that Leao doesn't get injured.
Let's put one name there. And this is a name that you definitely have to look into, because Diaz, I think, will be rested because of his muscle strain or something he picked up at against Napoli. Who would you actually put in that position? So we have Salamakers, who you could argue did Lionel Messi in the game against Napoli. And Messias is back. So what say you? Pick your poison. What would you choose?
So I'm still not sold on Salamakers.
Okay.
Even after that great thinking run, great Messi type goal. I'm not sold on Messias either. I'd probably, just because Salad scored that great goal, I think everyone's starting to overhype him now already. It shows how short memories people have, because he's basically been bad most of the season. But so I'd probably play Salamakers, hoping that Diaz is back for the Champions League. And then Salamakers then can be relegated to a bench player. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you can't drop Salamakers after scoring that goal, even if I think Napoli were very loose and very open and already beaten at that point. You can't drop him. You can't.
Okay.
Not for
So another name that I want to ask you about, and that's actually Giroud. So Giroud in the game against Napoli, you saw the glimpses of what he could do, but the connection just wasn't there. So he should actually have scored one goal, but he didn't manage to. Sorry, he should have scored at least one goal. So in that position, do you think Giroud is needed, or I mean, we have options here. Yeah? People who can actually do that position. One name I hesitate to one point whereby he just can't play every game. It's impossible for a player his age. Who would you rather see in that position if it was?
To be honest, I probably actually prefer to see Origi.
Okay.
Right? Because the thing is if if people are complaining about Origi's goal threat, right, compared to Giroud at this point, are probably the same,
Yeah,
right?
you have a point there.
So at least Origi, yeah. So at least, and what Origi does relatively well is he does well, right? Now the link-up play isn't as good as Giroud's, but at the end of the day, it's like, you know, if we can just get Giroud even a game's rest, surely that's better for the UCL. You know, I just don't want it to be a situation where Giroud has to come on because we're a goal behind and it's like the 70th minute, because there shouldn't be any need to it. You know, not with Empoli's form. We should be confidently beating this team. So I think Origi should be starting, and I think, you know, as great as the team were against Napoli, Giroud was probably one of the ones that played very average. He didn't really seem to do much, which I can understand because he's tired. So for me, I'd take off Giroud, rest him for this game, hopefully get him for the UCL.
Yeah, I
So I
completely
do.
agree with you. So Origi has scored goals, so he does have that in his locker. It's just that he hasn't scored enough, and this is why his future is in question. But what did you think of the minutes that he had against Napoli? Because in my opinion, I thought he didn't do that bad. He was threatening, and he got into situations whereby it was him and maybe one or two other defenders in front of him. I know he didn't score, but there were some ideas there. So he tried to cut back, he tried to pass it over.
Hmm.
He didn't find enough space in front of him. But against Empoli, maybe you have better luck. So I completely agree with you. But then goes the question about CDK, and I know that we played with Benacer as, you could say, flexible cam, and or what do you call it,
Who
Tchaikovsky?
was surprisingly effective
Yeah,
in that position. I didn't think he would be, but he was really effective because he recycles the ball very well. That's really surprising to me.
but I did see him
Yeah,
as
Benacer.
alternating. I mean, he's still doing the double pivot job when needed to. Just that I think he was controlling the pace up front on the final third, which is something that we haven't seen in a while. But then goes the question about CDK, and do you think there's even minutes for him in the game against Empoli? Because by right, for a player of his standard and how much we paid for him, I know a lot of people are sick and tired of mentioning the price tag, but it'll stick with him for the rest of his career in Milan. This should be a game for him, right? I mean, CDK should actually start this game. But do you think there's even a small chance of that?
I think if there's minutes for CDK, then there should be minutes for Adley. So therefore, I don't
I
see
agree.
minutes for either of them. Just based on Pioli's selection choices. Obviously, it is Pioli's job to get 3 points for every game. I suppose in terms of CDK though, if you're not going to be able to find space playing against Empoli with their horrific defence, you're never going to find space in the Italian league. So yeah, I'd put on. I mean, it is time for CDK. And I think, while I wouldn't go ahead and say, look, it's time to start Adley from right from the start. I think there should be minutes for Adley as well if we're winning. But I think this should essentially be a game for CDK because, again, if it's all about getting confidence, it's all about, I mean, you're playing against a relegation level side here, right? Who are by no means safe, right? So, man, you got to pull it out the hat sometime. Pioli, he should be playing him, and let us not forget, right? As great as Diaz was in that Napoli game, and as great as he was in the Spurs game, right? There was an awful lot of games this season where it wouldn't have made a huge difference if you had CDK or Diaz on the pitch because
Yeah.
Diaz wasn't that effective. So, and the end result could be with Diaz, which will probably more likely happen now because he's kind of playing. He's starting to pick up his run of form. He's going to be going back to Real Madrid. So we're still stuck with CDK is stuck with us, right? And we're stuck with CDK, which I'm still okay with because I think the talent is there. But surely, I mean, he should be getting more minutes. So, but again, I suppose it is down to Pioli, and Pioli has to win the game. So if we're, I don't know, something miraculous happens and we're 3-0 up at halftime against Empoli, you just bring him on because they're
You
not
know what
getting
he's going to
four
do? He's going to
goals
bring
on
on
us.
Bakayoko again.
I
Bakayoko
know.
turns his new favorite player.
I
Completely
know,
baffles
I
everyone.
know, and I really don't understand it. Like, okay, so I understand Bakayoko in terms of why Pioli would want to bring him on, right? Because he's tall, he's physical, right? He's a bit of a unit, right? But the thing is there's not a huge positive in choosing either Bakayoko or Franks. There's not a huge difference, right? And at least Franks could potentially become a player that, we depend on an awful lot more. So it's Tron Franks. I mean, if it's a choice of Bakayoko, who you know is going to leave anyway, and the net result there's not a huge difference even in their style of play, there's not a huge difference. I don't see a huge difference between Bakayoko and between Franks. So I mean,
I have this theory to the
you know,
Bakayoko, how he's used. I think he's like the ultimate fuck
go
you
on.
to the other team. It's like telling them, yeah, we'll play with 10 men. So no one wants to risk getting a red card, but I'll put on Bakayoko, who effectively is taking one play out of the game.
I
And see
did.
if you can do
Yeah,
anything.
that's a good point. I think this was a chess move by Pioli. It's like not only are we destroying you, the league leaders, right? We've also managed to keep a clean sheet with Bakayoko and Rebic on the pitch.
And keep in mind, Bakayoko used to play for Napoli, and they know how shit he is.
That's it. That's
They're just
it.
rubbing salt in the
That's it.
wound.
That's it. And I think if that hasn't just destroyed Napoli, right? I don't know what else. I think Pioli, what a just chess, just
The mind games, the
3D
mind
chess,
games.
man.
Oh, did we lose Shane again? Yeah, I think it's having more connection issues. But yeah, that's my theory for the game. And yeah, if Shane is not be able to come back, oh, he's back.
I'm back. So sorry,
Okay.
guys. So I'm never going to use mobile data again. I have no choice because behind the curtain, look. So my son is home from school, which means he's watching Netflix, which means it tanks my connection, which means I can't use the home Wi-Fi. So
It's fine, Shane. So yeah, just to
anyway,
round it up, I mean, yeah, any closing thoughts on where we're going on? It's the home stretch. We only have about 8 games left in the season, if my math is correct. Uh, 2 more definite games in the Champions League. What are your expectations for the next few games?
so not getting too carried away with myself in terms of the Champions League. I'm hopeful that we can get through to the semis. Hopeful. Keep in mind that where we are right now is a huge achievement. What's probably just as important for me is the Champions League, though, is that we finish at least second. Now we've no reason not to. So, because again, I don't trust that Juventus won't get their 15 points reduction back. Keep
They
in
don't
mind,
need the whole
sorry,
15
the
points, by the way. I
Juventus.
think if they get like 10
Yeah,
points back, they're already in top four.
that's it. And if we finish fourth, I think we deserve to get chucked out of the Champions League, even if we win it. Right, we deserve to get chucked out of the Champions League if we finish fourth, because there's no reason why there's no reason why we should be struggling how we are when you have Lazio seconds. Come on, let's.
With Romagnoli, the person who, in a way, we wanted out, leading their back line. So
It's a shame. It's a shame. Only good things to say about Romagnoli, though. I mean, he left like a professional. He did say, look, the contract offer didn't come. He did the right thing by him. He's always talked well of the club since, for the most part. So it's not like Andrea Pirlo, which everyone idolizes, and yet he badmouthed the club. So, yeah, kudos to Romagnoli. But anyway, that's it. That's all I got.
Well, with that, thank you all for tuning in. And yeah, for those who are catching us on YouTube, I mean, we're also on Twitter, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and Instagram. Yeah. Sorry, it's not been updated in a while. I'll get around to updating it. But yeah, if you message us, contact us, let us know if there's anything that you want us to cover. We'll be happy to do it on the show. So, thanks, Shane. And yeah, until next week, Forza Milan as always.
Forza Milan. See you guys.
See ya.
Italia!